Welcome back. Well, the federal government officially entering a partial shutdown overnight after Democrats and Republicans could not agree to a funding bill. The measure required 60 votes to pass, but it fell short in a 55-45 vote. Democrats John Fetterman and Catherine Cortez Masto, along with independent Angus King, all voted with Republicans to support the bill. Kentucky Senator Rand Paul, the only Republican to vote against the bill. The Congressional Budget Office says an estimated 750,000 federal employees could face furloughs as a result of the impasse. The OMB formally instructing agencies to begin shutdown procedures Tuesday night. Another memo expected today. The Senate will also vote again today on both the House-passed CR and the version introduced by Chuck Schumer. House Speaker Mike Johnson will join me this morning in the 8 a.m. hour on what happens next and whether a breakthrough is still possible. So join us for that special interview. First, though, let's talk with Maryland Congressman Andy Harris. He is the chairman of the House Freedom Caucus. Mr. Chairman, thanks very much for being here. This is the fourth government shutdown this century, the first since 2019's record 35-day standoff over border wall funding. You remember that one. Your reaction now and what you are expecting in terms of the length of this shutdown?
Well, my reaction is exactly what John Fetterman's reaction was on your show. The bottom line is that this is the same, basically the same level of spending that Democrats voted for a year and a half ago, that enough Democrats in the Senate voted for in March. This just continues the level of spending. This is incredible that the Democrats, who have always called for a clean CR, there's nothing partisan about this CR. It's the exact same level of spending as the last year of the Biden administration. The bottom line is, Maria, we shouldn't be shutting the government down. Look, we don't want to even keep spending frozen. The Freedom Caucus would rather we work to reduce spending, but we want to keep the government open. We don't want the American people to suffer. So we voted for the CR. We think the Democrats should.
Are there any action-forcing catalysts? I mean, you know, last time we had the debt limit in previous shutdowns, and that was a catalyst that caused the two to come together. But you don't really see any action-forcing catalysts this time around, right?
Well, I do. I think that when Russ Vought came up with a plan to say, hey, this time we're actually going to do not furloughs, we're going to do layoffs. We're actually going to fire people from some of these non-essential jobs, which means they don't get back pay if they get rehired. I think when that becomes apparent that he's serious about that, that I think the Democrats then change their mind, and enough of them in the Senate vote to just keep the government open for 7 weeks while we negotiate all these other things that the Democrats are bringing up now.
So assess that, characterize that. How significant will these job cuts be, do you think?
I don't think they have to be very large. I think they just have to be, this would be very different from any other shutdown because, as you've had pointed out on the show this morning, normally furloughed federal workers get back pay. They go home, they don't work for a period of time, they get back pay. If they get laid off, if they get actually fired from the job, and only to be potentially rehired, they don't get back pay. That's a game changer in terms of how we handle these shutdowns. We shouldn't have shutdowns. We should pass laws that automatically just continue current funding, but we don't have that in place. But this threat of these layoffs will, in fact, bring the Democrats to the table.
Would you support Senator Mike Round's idea that would see the subsidies that the Democrats want so badly extended for 1 year? And then that would be followed by a 1-year phase down to return the tax credits to pre-COVID levels. Would you support something like that?
I wouldn't, Maria, because we shouldn't extend them for a year. We know that there's fraud, waste, and abuse. It's rampant. Okay. We know that the insurance companies are making tens of billions of dollars on this plan. They're actually running ads now to promote extending these COVID-era enhancements. I wouldn't vote for an extension, no.
Okay. All right. Look, well, you know, I keep saying that you all have been talking about getting back to pre-COVID spending. I don't know how you do that without stopping some of the things that were done during COVID. But let me move on because there are new documents obtained by Fox News Digital, and they revealed note cards given to former President Joe Biden by his officials in his administration. These note cards detailed names and photographs of high-profile Democrats, such as former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, New York Senator Chuck Schumer. They also included lesser-known individuals so Biden could refer to them during live events. It's all part of the investigation into the use of Biden's auto pen. Mr. Chairman, what is your reaction that Joe Biden needed a note card to show him who Hillary Clinton was?
Well, look, as a physician, I've said for years during the Biden administration, there's something not right here. The bottom line is that he needed more note cards because he famously even forgot, who his Secretary of Defense was. The bottom line is this was obvious to a lot of Americans. This president, the faculties all weren't there, and what's really a shame is that it was hidden by his closest advisors from the American people.
Yeah, and Chuck Schumer. I mean, I remember when Chuck Schumer came out of a meeting with Joe Biden, and he said, he's so strong. He's stronger than me. He does more in the morning than I do in 2 days or something. I mean, the amount of, commentary from Schumer and others who had met with Biden, I mean, was that just lies, raw lies?
Yeah, it was. The bottom line is to a lot of, again, I'm a physician. A lot of the physicians in Congress, they looked at what was happening and they're just shaking their heads. This was so obvious to them. That's why the cover-up needs to be investigated. Who was covering it up? What was the auto pen doing? Who was authorizing the auto pen?
Yeah.
This is the leader of the free world. We need to look into this.
And they are. Pam Bondi joined me yesterday. She would not comment on it because she says it's an active investigation into the auto pen. Meanwhile, President Trump announced a tentative deal with Harvard to restore $2.5 billion in frozen federal money. Harvard will now invest $500 million to launch and run trade schools, ending a long-running clash over affirmative action and alleged discrimination against Jewish students. Mr. Chairman, your reaction there?
Look, it's finally happening. Academia is actually going to be forced to do the things they should have done for years, which is to have a colorblind system of admission, where admission is based on merit alone. And look, if this is what it takes to bring academia to the table, so be it. But this was a long time coming. It's a good move forward for the American people. By
the way, we need more trade schools. Why shouldn't Harvard invest that money? Because we are going to need millions and millions of electricians. We're going to need millions of construction people as this AI infrastructure is built out.
That's absolutely right, and that's why the Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon, that's why she's so strong on this issue for that very reason.
Yeah, Congressman, it's good to see you this morning, sir. Thank you. We'll be watching your work.